Memphis messed with DeJuan Guy, and the Owls pull out a homecoming victory.
It's another come-from-behind win for Temple, and this one moves them up the conference standings. Plus,
live from Lincoln Financial Field, we'll have a breakdown and the highlights from Temple versus Memphis homecoming weekend, and it all starts on a brand new edition of Inside the Nest, starting right now!
Hello everyone and welcome into another edition of Inside the Nest. He's Jackson Neal and I'm Ray Dunn. The Temple Owls have a winning record for the first time since 2019.
We'll hear from head coach Rod Carey and have a special guest during No Huddle today. But first, we start with this Saturday's conference opener. The Owls welcome the Memphis Tigers into Lincoln Financial Field for Temple's homecoming game. The Cherry and White were looking to get that second straight win and get over 500. The Tigers, meanwhile, were hoping for a bounce-back performance after losing their first game of the season a week prior. Royalty is in attendance as the Link is rocking for Temple's conference opener. But it's Memphis that brings the energy first. True freshman quarterback Seth Hannigan launches a perfect ball to Javon Ivory in the back of the end zone, putting the Tigers up 17-0. It's another slow start for the Owls, who have trailed by double digits in 4 of their first 5 games in 2021. But Temple battles right back. Dwan Mathis rolls to his right and finds Jaden Blue, who twists around to make the one-handed grab and put the Owls on the board. That was one of Mathis's 3 touchdown throws on the day, and Temple has found life. The Owls come right back down the field, and this time it's Jose Barbone who goes up and catches the score on the right side of the end zone. That grab cut Memphis's lead to just 3 before Rory Bell erases it completely. The freshman nails a 35-yarder as time expires in the first half, evening the game at 17 apiece at the midway point. And how about this? The lineman shows some love to the team's leading scorer. To the second half, where Memphis shows they're not done. Hannigan completes the jump pass to Sean Dykes for the TD, but the Tigers' extra point attempt was blocked, giving them only a 6-point lead. And Temple responds. On a 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, Tavon Ruley punches it in for his first touchdown of the season, and the Owls go up 1 after Bell converts the PAT. To the 4th, where on homecoming, 2 transfers linked up in the biggest play of the day for their new school. Ahmad Anderson takes the pass from Mathis 53 yards and puts Temple up by 2 scores. It was Anderson's first trip to the end zone since back in 2019 when he was at Purdue. And that was the difference. Ivory gets his second touchdown catch of the day, and after converting the 2-point conversion, Memphis pulls within 3 points but can't recover the onside kick. Temple gets the upset win 34-31.
Weird as this is to say, I felt like we got out to a fast start, and you look up and you're down 17-0. That's how it felt. That's not how it looked. That's not how it appeared on the scoreboard. But that first touchdown, certainly we were talking earlier about, we knew we had to have some moments. That first touchdown was the moment.
It's amazing, you know what I'm saying, coming out beating a team like this. It's a conference game, you know what I'm saying, at home, homecoming, you know what I'm saying. It was amazing, you know what I'm saying. It bring the confidence way up, and but from now we just got to take it and run with it.
So if we do our jobs, we'll be fine. It's up to all of us to collectively do our jobs together, and if your opportunity comes up, then you excel at it.
And DeJuan Mathis certainly made the most of his opportunity. The Owls star completed 35 of his 49 passes for 322 yards and 3 touchdowns in the biggest game of his young Temple career. He spread the ball around to 11 different receivers. Jaden Blue led the team in receptions with 8 for 37 yards, but left the game early. Edward Sadie led the backfield with 12 carries for 62 yards. Defensively, single digits Will Cuenca and Amir Tyler led the way with a combined 15 tackles, a sack, and 2 tackles for loss. Back to the man under center, DeJuan Mathis earned himself some recognition around the country this week. First, the AAC gave him some love with an honorable mention in its Football Players of the Week release. Elsewhere, the All-State Sugar Bowl released its Manning Award Stars of the Week, and Mathis found his way onto the list. The group includes Ohio State's C.J. Stroud and Cincinnati's Desmond Ridder, who I'm sure the Owls will be talking about just a bit over at Ed Bergelson Hall this week. An upset win, a gaudy stat line, and some accolades to go with it. Juwan Mathis has to be the headline coming out of this game.
Oh, he certainly is. It was the best game of his college career so far, showing why he was a four-star QB coming out of high school, throwing for over 300 yards, having the 3 TDs. But the thing that really stuck out to me was him running the football. I know he was on a bad ankle. They were saying on the broadcast he was around 80%. Imagine when he'll be at 100%. Those zone read plays that he was taking for double-digit gains, that really opened up the Owls' offense. I want to see what he's going to look like once he gets fully healthy.
Well, you got to give credit to the guys up front, too. And when you talk about those zone reads, the offensive line did their job in this game. I had mentioned last week my key to the game for Memphis was getting pressure on Juwan Mathis. It's something they've done as a program for quite a few years now, be at the top of the American Athletic Conference in getting pressure on quarterbacks. They didn't do that, and that's a credit to what this offensive line can do, only allowing 2 quarterback hurries and no sacks in that game. A very, very impressive job for that group.
And when you give your quarterback time, what you'll see is not a lot of turnovers. So far, they are at +5 turnovers on the season. That's how you win football games. That's why Temple's 3-2.
They're going to need to be careful with the football coming up this week. Just one more thing to that point. Memphis, we may have been right about them not being just as good as they were or they built up to be going into this season. It made for a good homecoming, though. Again, homecoming 2021 was a fantastic time. The Temple Templars were in the building and, of course, had themselves a grand old time. Meanwhile, Temple Athletics class, Hall of Fame class, was honored at halftime. More on that later. I did not win Homecoming King, unfortunately. And finally, the most impressive feat of the day comes on this field goal for a flat screen TV. If this is you, let me know because I'm looking for a place to watch football on the weekends. Anyways, the 28,000 plus people on hand certainly retreated to quite a game. And as for that game, we've got a look at the aerial assault that caught Memphis off guard.
We now go to Inside the Nest reporter Eric Jessberger, who we saw hanging out in Lot K with Temple's new president. Now, he's live at Ed Bergelson Hall. Welcome to the show, Eric.
Thanks, Jackson and Ray. Since week 6 of last season, the Owls haven't been able to earn consecutive wins, not to mention consecutive games with over 275 total offensive yards. Saturday, the Owls did both in their win over Memphis, and it took a village of receivers to get it done. A second straight week without the injured Randall Jones, the Owls' leading wide receiver.
It is caught, Randall Jones.
With the absence of Temple's graduate wideout, there were many ready to make up the difference. 11 different players to be exact, recording at least one catch. To put it simply, they all stepped up to the task.
Every week we get a game plan, and it's up to me to figure out what coverages they're going to run versus our pass plays. And me just being in the right position and trusting the guys out there. We got players all over. It's not about the players, it's about the execution. You guys just get to see it now.
Picks up a blitzer, Mathis throw, corner of the end zone, touchdown!
322 total offensive yards through the air left the Owls just 21 yards shy of 500 total yards on the day.
Those guys, those 11 guys that you're talking about, have been catching balls in practice all the time. And so we feel real good about our depth at wide receiver and tight end. Credit to the receivers and Juwan.
Down by 14, and it wasn't until the second quarter before the Owls were able to punch in their first touchdown on the day. However, they certainly did so in highlight reel fashion.
Mathis back in for 4th and goal, have to have it, flips it to Blue, and with one hand, he gets Temple on the board. Oh, wow.
I was hyped. I wanted to tackle him. I was hyped. I seen him, I'm like, yeah, Jaden, he finally got in the end zone. He worked hard, so I was happy for him.
And get you some, Mr. Blue.
The showcase of an offensive arsenal in the conference opener makes the victory over Memphis a statement game for the Owls, as they featured a talented room of wide receivers, tight ends, and backfield with players ready to step up when the ball is thrown their way. A heavy workload for receivers meant productive days for these three Owls. Redshirt junior Jaden Blue led the team in total receptions on the day with 8. The one-hand snag touchdown to highlight his performance Saturday. Right behind Blue with the second most receptions at 7 was Jose Barbone, totaling 51 yards and a touchdown on his day as well. While fellow redshirt sophomore Ahmad Anderson Jr. collected the most receiving yards on the day with 108, a long of 53, which so happened to be the touchdown, solidifying Temple's win over Memphis. The Owls will need a similar production in their Friday night matchup with Cincy, a team ranked 5th in the latest poll and an offense averaging over just shy of 40 points per game. More on that game story with Jackson Ray when they break down the Week 6 outlook for the Owls later on in our show. Reporting from Edinburgh Olson Hall, I'm Eric Jessberger inside the nest. Jackson and Ray, back to you in Studio 3.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. An upset win and a matchup with a top 5 opponent on primetime gives a coach plenty to talk about.
In part 1, Rod Carey touches on areas where the Owls need to improve, the challenges of that short week, and what's in store when the Owls get to Cincy for a nationally televised game on Friday night.
Well, good. Yeah. I mean, yesterday was obviously an extremely busy day with being a short turnaround week here on a 6-day turnaround. Kind of had to cram a couple days into one. So it's extremely long day, but bouncing back to Memphis real quick. Obviously, happy with the outcome. There's a lot of things in there that we have to get better at and continue to strive to improve. Obviously, did a lot of things good, but there's a lot we got to do better. And so, you've never arrived. It's about the journey. So that's what our attitude is going into this week. And looking at Cincy, they're a good football team. Obviously, really good on defense, good on offense, and really good on special teams too. So they force you into mistakes, which is good and well coached and all that stuff. So and it'll be a challenge going on the road into a Friday night environment. Is probably we'll play in a night environment like that. And so we'll go from there. We can open it up for questions from there.
How hard is it to have a shorter week, right? I know it's only one day, Saturday to Friday, but kind of what does that force you to do as coaches?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we haven't done it a whole lot here in the last few years, but unfortunately, the place I was at before, we would have short weeks all the time, especially in the month of November. So we have a template to use. It doesn't mean that the template doesn't mean the coaches don't get a lot of sleep, which is certainly the case right now. You got to take 2 days and put them into one when you're doing this. Long hours is what it is. We try to keep the kids as rested as we can, but still have to get the work in that we need to get, knowing that we have to travel too.
When you talked about sort of cutting down, right, 3 to 2 or 2 to 1, does what is normally do you cut back maybe on what's normally the Tuesday heavy physical workload? Is that sort of one thing that gets that kind of thing?
Well, on short weeks, you're always careful about physical work, no matter if it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Yeah, in practice day, you have to get some physical work in. That's the name of this game. That has to happen. But how much of it is always the question when you're going to play 4 quarters on a day's shorter rest.
I know all wins are big, but did you feel even more bounce in the team step because you guys beat one of the better teams in the division? You came back from an early deficit and everything. Just maybe could you talk about what this win could have meant for the program?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're aware of the difference between our previous week's win and this one, it being a conference game and the opponent who it is. Very aware of that, and we understand that. It doesn't change what we've been doing and saying and have to keep doing and saying, which, we have to go back to work on this thing. So, and keep getting better. But yeah, I mean, Mark, obviously, we don't want to address it. We don't talk about it all the time. Because really it's about our work. But yeah, I mean, we don't have our head in the sand.
The one ran out of. He's coming off that injury and maybe trying to, get something that he needs. How did you evaluate his decision making on those?
Well, I mean, the one, I thought he got it when he crossed the line and he jumped over. I thought that was a poor spot because he was fully aware of the sticks. And then another one he dove forward for, and his knee probably was down a little short on that one. And then the long run, yeah, I mean, listen, he knows his body better than me. So, we haven't had any conversations, but be able to play the quarterback spot and be able to play it smart and well and execute at a high level. So, I think all those decisions were good decisions when you're talking about him running. Temple and Philly, really for what this city and this university have been through with COVID, they deserve that. On Saturday, they deserve to be able to gather outside and cheer and have fun and do all those things. And I was just really happy for our students, for our donors, our alumni, everyone who was there, and our fans too, and our staff that was there and everything, and most of all for our kids. They put a lot of hard work in, and it's fun to play in front of fans.
Kerry mentioning there how his previous experience will help him with this short week.
Yeah, and he has a point to that. Rod Carey at NIU in short weeks was 6-1. So the MAC really helping him out there. There's a lot that can happen in those short weeks. They mentioned just the balance of rest versus physical work. Obviously, you want these guys to get their physical work in. You want them to be able to hit one another, practice the way they should play. But I do think that's going to come in very handy given that he has experience, as he mentioned, that November schedule. Because you go to the MAC, that November, you're playing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Whenever the network can fit you in, that is when you are playing football.
Exactly. Some Wednesday night action. I'm sure you're used to seeing that. One thing, though, they definitely need to work on going forward and go in this week and looking towards that game against Cincinnati. We keep mentioning it every single week, it feels like. That first quarter, that first half, getting down early. They've been outscored 50-7 in the first quarter of football games. You can't do that against good teams, but especially against a top 5 team in the country. That will not fly this week against Cincinnati.
No, it won't. They're going to have to clean up the mistakes, and they're going to have to clean up their work in that first quarter. The way you mentioned, I really do think, again, the conversation goes back to DeJuan's health. I think getting DeJuan in a rhythm and comfortable early on, you saw early on they were able to move the football in the first quarter of the game in this game. Maybe there's a step in the right direction this week against Cincinnati. As for Rod Carey, in part 2, he talks more about injuries, about his defense, and also what is happening with the Cincinnati program that is moving in such a powerful direction.
Hey, Rod, I was curious if you had an injury update on Randall Jones.
Yeah, so we didn't, we're not practicing today, even on the short week. We just walked through. But I would have thought, had we practiced today, he maybe could have gotten out there and done some flex stuff with us, early in practice. But I don't know. So I know their plan is they're going to do more rehab with him today. Later today, he may be out doing it right now, and then I'll hear after that.
Into the game there, Griffin and McGee kind of met each other and walked off a little slowly. You think they'll be okay?
Yeah, they should be. I mean, they kind of hit each other, which friendly fire. But they'll bumped and bruised.
Right, and then Jaden got back into the game, but I'm thinking that was more guts than maybe being 100% and came back in.
Yeah, he was moving around better. Again, he'll be day to day for sure this week, but he was moving around better than probably I anticipated, or maybe even he did.
One thing was, I'm curious how sort of Kevin Robertson's first 2 games is showing up. And secondly, I still are not completely clear, changing to where you're primarily now a 3-man front. Was that kind of in the works as this season approached, or did sort of the personnel and injuries, kind of push that change a little bit?
So the Kevin answer, it's good that he's finally back healthy. He gives us a real, veteran strength guy in there that really is just, he's got that strength that, You know, and a lot of our other guys are strong too, but he's been that strong for a long time. Instead of new strength, it's developed strength is what I always say with that. As far as the defense and what we're doing, you know, as a football coach, you always have to be evolving and learning. And if you are not doing those two things, you shouldn't be coaching anymore. So we certainly looked at all those things that you talked about, Sean. And, you know, it's not you make a decision one day and then that's who you are. You have to make decisions as they travel through based on information you have, that you learn, that you gain. And that's how we've ended up where we are right now.
Back to something on Saturday, obviously, Evander Rigby started at Bubo. What was the decision behind in moving him to that position? And then what's the status of Quantel Raines, actually, because he didn't see the field on Saturday?
Yeah, we certainly would like to see Quantel get back on the field and do that. But, you know, Vandy had certainly earned that with how he's been progressing. Just felt like we needed to get him on the field, and certainly want to see Quantel, you know, come back and earn some playing time back here too, which I'm hopefully he can do this week.
So was it a case with Raines that, was it an injury or was it just that Rigby out practiced him?
Yeah, I mean, Rigby's been playing at a high level.
Hey, Rod, I wanted to ask you about, you know, Cincinnati. God, it doesn't seem that long ago you were playing them on that night game for the division, right? Division was kind of hanging in the balance a little bit. You guys were right. It seemed like those two teams, you guys had a lot of talent. They did a lot of experience. Since then, from what you know, when you pop on that Cincinnati tape this week, do you see, like, have they just gotten sort of right in their program and experience continues, or are there more talent guys who will just pop off the tape?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's an either or question. I think it's both. They have some of the same cast characters for sure. And then they've added good talent to it. So, but that's how a program works. And, you know, so they're executing that and, you know, well established now. I don't know what year this is for group, whether it's 4 or 5, something like that, but it's, you know, it's executing a program.
We've talked about a lot this year about how the team has had, you know, some ups and downs trying to manage their emotions. You know, I'm curious what that looks like this week, right? Where, you know, the emotions are probably really high after that victory. Like, what does that process kind of look like this week for you guys?
You know, we haven't changed the way we're attacking this week. We haven't changed any week as far as how we attack this thing emotionally and physically and with our focus. Those things that we've been doing that are boring and small little boring details are the things that have gotten us in this position right now, and you can't stop doing those boring little details.
We've mentioned so many times on this show the wide receivers. An update on Randall Jones' health at the beginning of that segment.
Yeah, it really was a big update there. It still sounds like he's up in the air for next week. But getting him back would be huge for this Temple passing game. He's one of the best wide receivers on the roster, and he's very explosive as well. I could see him getting a short pass like that one Ahmad Anderson took 53 yards all the way for a touchdown. Randall Jones would be perfect in that position, getting those short throws from Mathis.
I'm going to take this conversation to the defensive side of the football because I think it was really telling. Two different pieces of that presser. First, Evander Rigby getting the start at Bubo. It's a sign of things to come for this young linebacking core. They've mentioned multiple times throughout the summer and the fall the talent that they have there and what they're looking to do, how those guys are pushing that talent forward at the linebacker position. I think you're going to see more of those young guys move up. And then three-man front. They've adjusted. This pass defense has been really good when they're letting get more guys drop back, only going 3 towards the quarterback. I think that is what you're looking for the Owls on defense going forward. That's all from Kerry this week. Much like him, it's time for us to turn our focus to Cincinnati. But first, it's time for a quick break.
Also, coming up later, we'll be taking a no huddle with a special guest this week. Inside the Nest will be back in just 90 seconds.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. It's time to talk about the finest football team that the American Athletic Conference has to offer, at least as we sit here now.
The Bearcats beat 9th-ranked Notre Dame in South Bend on Saturday and moved up to number 5 in the AP poll this week. That makes this game Temple's toughest of the season.
For Temple to have any chance in this game, it's going to take limiting the mistakes. Cincinnati has been one of the most opportunistic defenses in the entire country. The Bearcats boast a +5 turnover margin and have an astounding 8 interceptions through 4 games. Temple has turned the ball over only once in its last 4 games, and its quarterbacks have not turned it over since the Rutgers game. That trend will need to continue to get an upset on Friday.
Cincinnati is one of the best teams in the country, and a big reason why is its quarterback, Desmond Ridder. The fourth-year starter is currently a top 5 favorite to win the Heisman and is a highly rated prospect for the 2022 NFL Draft. So far this season, he's thrown for more than 1,000 yards with 9 touchdowns and added 3 more scores rushing. But most importantly, the Bearcats just don't seem to lose when he starts. Ridder's career record is 35-6, including a perfect 21-0 at home. If he gets going like he usually does, Cincinnati should have no problem keeping its undefeated season alive.
It's the Group of Five's big moment. The Cincinnati Bearcats are 4-0, knocking off national power Notre Dame this past weekend. Couple that with a win over Indiana, a Big Ten program who opened the season in the top 25 polls, and Cincinnati is firmly in the conversation for the college football playoff. More on that later. Looking beyond Temple, it appears that their greatest test will be SMU. Otherwise, their second half schedule outside the Mustangs features teams that are combined 7-17.
Temple hasn't had much success recently against ranked teams. The Owls have lost 4 of their past 5 matchups with top 25 foes, but Cincinnati is one of the schools who Temple has played very well against. Back in 2018, the Cherry and White handed the then 20th ranked Bearcats their first loss of the season with a 24-17 overtime win at the Link. Then a year later, Temple almost pulled off the upset against the Cincinnati squad that was 17th in the country. But a blocked extra point return for a touchdown gave the Bearcats the home win on senior day.
Now for Friday, it's a nationally televised game for the Owls. The 7 o'clock start in Cincinnati will be on ESPN. ESPN, their first regular season game on the mothership since playing USF in 2019. And of course, we'll have live updates on Twitter throughout the game, during the game, so stick with us on social at Owl Sports Update. And then this past Friday, Temple University inducted 12 new members into the school's Hall of Fame as part of their class of 2020.
Among them was former football head coach Al Golden, who took over Temple's program in 2006 with a clear vision that turned a team on the way out into a winner. Build to last. That was Al Golden's mission statement during his time at Temple. On Friday, he put the final touches on his program-altering career at North Broad when he was inducted into Temple's Hall of Fame.
To see it to fruition was fun, and if I have any legacy, I hope that it is that I fulfilled my promise, that I told him I was going to build him a house of brick, and it wasn't just going to be a house of cards and fall apart.
But just like his career at Temple, Golden needed patience before enjoying this kind of night. The class of 2020 had to wait an extra year to be honored because of the pandemic. When they finally received these awards, though, the wait was worth it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm humbled and grateful.
The program was at a crossroads when Golden took over at Temple in 2006. The team had recently been kicked out of the Big East Conference and was ranked towards the bottom of Division I. But that didn't faze Golden, who had a plan right from the first interview with fellow Hall of Famer and former AD Bill Bradshaw.
He told us who he was going to recruit for his coaching staff, every one of them. Told us what player he was going to recruit, like the next day. So he wasn't only trying to impress, he was saying, I'm here to take this job. I understand how difficult it is. I know the challenges. I know the steep climb it's going to be, and I want it.
After going 19-29 in Golden's first 3 seasons, Temple broke through in 2009 with a 9-4 record, their best finish since 1979. Golden followed that up with another winning season in 2010 before he moved on to the University of Miami. But as he promised, brick is built to last.
You know, when people see some of those core values still alive and see what has transpired and the notoriety that the football program is bringing, I hope people can look back at that little portion of time in the history of the program.
It's time for another break. When we come back, we welcome in an old friend.
That's right, Philadelphia Inquirer Temple sports reporter Bella Diamore will join us for a special edition of No Huddle. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. You know the drill, 6 minutes, strong opinions, and some memorable facial reactions.
And this week, we've added a third box to the fun with Bella Diamore joining us. She writes about Temple football for the Philadelphia Inquirer and is also the sports editor for the Temple News. Bella, you ready?
Oh yeah, Jackson, I'm ready. Let's get started.
Let's get this started by thinking ahead. After this upset win, can Temple get to 6 wins?
I mean, against Memphis, that was an anticipated win, but it was a big step forward in Temple's program. Looking ahead, they have 3 wins under their belt, and going forward, I definitely think 6 is an accomplishable goal. They have USF, Navy and East Carolina still on the schedule to be played. I definitely think those are 3 wins that are accomplishable, and I feel confident enough that they will be able to get 6 wins.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there on that one, Bella. I think that the winnable games left so far are all on the road. That USF game you mentioned, that Tulsa game, that ECU game you mentioned, all of their winnable games are on the road. That's going to make this a tough road to 6 wins. I do think they can beat Navy, but to expect them to have a winning record of those 3 road games, I think it's going to be a tough ask for this Temple team.
Can they? Yes. Will they? I'm not going all the way down that path yet, but I'll lean yes on this. In home games during the Rod Carey era, they're 9-4. UCF on the home schedule, without Dylan Gabriel, they're not a good team. Houston, not sold them yet. Maybe that's a tough game for them. Still, it's a home game. Navy, not a good football team. There's 2 of the 3 home games look very winnable right now. Meanwhile, USF, ECU, and Tulsa all still on the schedule. Not good football teams. There's a chance they win 6 football games and get themselves to a bowl game this year. I would lean towards 6 wins now, honestly, after watching Saturday.
All right, you're always the optimist. That's what I love so much about you. Let's move on to our next question now. What will Temple's weakest matchup be going against Cincinnati? Offense, defense, special teams, or maybe all of the above?
I'm going with Temple's offense. Dwan Mathis will not be able to run the ball like he did in the Memphis game against Cincy's defense. The Bearcats have gone into, besides Indiana University and Murray State, they have not been able to go into the half without 7 points. Every other game, they've gone in with at least 14 points at the half. And Temple's offense, I mean, without the help from their defense, they have not been able to start in the first quarter at all, and it's mostly been scoreless in the first quarter.
I will agree with Bell. I think the offense will have the most trouble. This defense for Cincinnati is a special group, only allowing 14.5 points per game, 4.27 yards per play. They've already intercepted 8 passes. All those marks, top 10 in the country. This is a good group. This is the group that can get the Bearcats into the college football playoff. I'd be concerned about Temple's offense come Friday night.
And Ray and Bella, I'm going to have to disagree with you guys. It wouldn't be no huddle if there wasn't a little disagreement. I'm going Temple's defense. Right now, Desmond Ridder, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, over 1,000 yards passing. And here's another thing. We looked at Temple's defense going into this Memphis game. They were ranked #1 in terms of passing yards allowed per game. In the country, that is. But that was misleading. They played bad passing offenses and backup QBs. I think that Cincinnati's offense will have a big day.
And for our last question, should Cincinnati get a spot in the college football playoffs if they go undefeated?
I'm going to go a little controversial here and say no, they shouldn't. All right, the college football playoff has been around for 7 years. In those 7 years, there's been 21 semifinal and championship games. Of those 21 games, just 6 have been decided by 10 points or fewer. College football is a sport with a clear hierarchy. Every year, there's 1 to 3 teams that have a legitimate shot to win the national championship. You have the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the Georgias, the teams that have the 5-star players, the great facilities, and the winning traditions. If you want to believe that Cincinnati going undefeated means something, but the overwhelming number of top-tier Power 5 programs that have tried to beat college football's elite in the college football playoff and just ended up getting blown out proves to me that Cincinnati, even if they're undefeated, they don't deserve a shot.
Oh, come on, Jackson. Come on. Show some love to the group of 5 here. If they go undefeated the rest of the way, they absolutely deserve their place in the college football playoff. The Bearcats became the first group of 5 teams to record a road win against an AP top 10 opponent from the Power 5 in the college football playoff era. They're doing things we haven't seen before from the group of 5.
Completely agree with Ray there. Come on, Jackson. An AAC team getting into the college playoffs, that would be awesome. You know, it would be nice to see a different team other than the Big Ten and SEC teams that are usually in there, you know, in the conference or in the college playoffs.
Well, that's all the time we have for No Huddle this week, Bella. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me on. I missed being in the studio with y'all.
Missed you too, Bella, and it's great to have you. Up next, we'll update you on the AAC standings. Stick around.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. It's a busy time in the AAC as conference play is finally in full swing.
For more, we go to Inside the Nest reporter Emily Cochran, who is over at the studio set with some early season standings. Hi, Emily.
Thanks, guys. Conference play has officially started for every AAC team except for Cincy. Still, the Bearcats had the weekend's most impressive win at Notre Dame on Saturday. The win moved Cincy to 5th or 6th, depending on the football poll you look at. Houston topped Tulsa 45-10 this past Friday to lead the team in conference play with a 2-0 record. But keep in mind they are the only team to play in 2 conference games so far. SMU and Navy had really great games this past weekend. SMU dominated against South Florida 41-17, while Navy took home its biggest win of the season, celebrating a close game against UCF that ended with a score of 34-30. The rest of the AAC teams are scattered on the board right now, with teams like Tulsa and South Florida still sitting at the bottom. But it's early. Give it a few more weeks and you should see much more separation. Going into week 6, the battle between Navy and SMU should be a good one to look out for. SMU is now ranked 24th in the nation, and Navy is coming off of a big win. With this momentum, I'm excited to see how Navy's defense will perform under the pressure of one of the best teams in the conference. Another game to look out for is the matchup between East Carolina and UCF. The Knights lost their starting quarterback Dylan Gabriel to a left clavicle injury 2 weeks ago, and their special teams need a lot of work. Between blocked extra points and also punts only traveling 15 yards, ECU is looking to use these UCF issues to their advantage. Overall, these Week 6 matchups should be interesting as we dive deeper into conference play. Ray and Jackson, back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Emily. It's now time for our weekly Twitter poll. Last week, just over half of you correctly predicted that Temple would pull off the upset against Memphis. Looks like Ray and I should have bought into that optimism ourselves. That makes our viewers 3-1 on the season, and our question is once again, who will win this week? Will the Owls be able to pull off another upset, this time against a top 5 team in the country on the road, or does Cincinnati get its first conference win of the season? Log on to Twitter and visit @OwlSportsUpdate to vote.
For more coverage on Friday's game and everything else going on in the world of Temple athletics, Luke Milai and Lindsay Moppert have you covered with a new edition of Owl Sports Update. Tune in Thursday for the live show at noon. Plus, be on the lookout for our sports brief that is brand new every Monday around noon. And then join us again next Tuesday live at noon for all things football on Inside the Nest. Until that time, it's time for us to go.
Be sure to catch the Temple Owls in primetime on the worldwide leader in sports on Friday night. For Ray Dunn and the entire Inside the Nest crew, I'm Jackson Neal. See you next Tuesday.